All right, so this is a little after action report after doing the Doug Thorley header. So I just want to kind of go through what I discovered and just kind of talk to you about some of the tips and tricks. So look, this is the Toyota header. The thing about the Toyota header is you can get a socket on every single bolt, top and bottom. And so my bias was, well, that's how the Thorley headers work. But that's not how it works, because the Thorley headers have the big pipes coming out here, so you can get more horsepower. And that means you cannot get a socket on most of the top ones, maybe one or two. And that means too, then if you use the Toyota gaskets, which people online say are infinitely superior, so you can see how the Toyota gasket kind of sticks over. When you're looking at this angle, you can't get a wrench into the Thorley bolts. So the Thorleys are designed to be tightened from the top. The Toyotas are designed to be tightened from the side. And because of that difference in philosophy, if you use the Toyota gasket without trimming off this lip here, it's going to be nearly impossible to tighten it down. Ask me how I know. I spent hours and hours and hours trying to do that. This is what a Thorley gasket looks like, right? So the Thorley gasket is meant to sit flat so that you can reach from the top and tighten it down. So I ended up using the Toyota gaskets, and I did a little trimming, but I should have trimmed a lot more. It's probably safe to do that. So this is obviously a little heat shield, right? But because the Thorley gasket or Thorley headers are ceramic coated, I think that they're going to dissipate heat better. They also come out further, so the heat's going a little bit away from the engine. And so I don't think this lip is actually going to do you much good, even if you're using the Toyota gaskets. So just cut it, make it flat. You could use tin snips. The next thing, right here, this is on the VVTi. On the VVTi, you have this air pipe up here, and there's these threads on the end. On my Doug Thorley's, when I came in, I didn't check those threads, and I should have, okay? But there was some gunk in there, and I couldn't tighten one of the bolts. I literally spent like 4 hours trying to tighten one of the damn bolts. And that included running to the hardware store and getting some other stuff. What I ended up having to do was actually like shape the bolt so that it would go in there and get started, and then I had to chase the threads from the other side. I could have removed the head, and that's what I should have done. It was just kind of a sunk cost kind of thing. Luckily that happened on the passenger side, not luckily, but then when I went to do the driver's side, it already chased it, and so that worked out pretty good. I still had to kind of shape a bolt, and the reason is because I tightened this to the engine first, and I didn't do these guys. And that pipe that you're trying to connect to is solid, and it does not budge. So before you tighten these bolts completely, get these in, get these in. And there's some new bolts that come from Thorley that go in here. The other thing is removing the studs that go in here from the factory. It's a little difficult until you realize you can put two nuts together and then ratchet it off. So keep that in mind. You will have to remove those studs. Let's see. Oh yeah, the other big thing is this. So the instructions here do not say to remove the motor mount, but I tried very hard not to remove the motor mount. You can get both sides off without removing the motor mounts. You can get the passenger Doug Thorley in without removing the motor mount, but I could not get the driver's side Doug Thorley in without removing the motor mount. And if I had just removed the motor mount from the beginning, boy, it would have been so much simpler. Like, I went through a couple extra steps I didn't need to. Like, you don't have to take the catalytic converters off if you do this. And I tried taking the catalytic converter off on the driver's side to see if I could sneak it up there. I tried taking out all the studs. I did everything I possibly could not to remove the motor mount. And the reason is this. The reason I didn't want to remove the motor mount is that if my support system for the engine had failed, it would have just fallen right onto the motor mount and not really been a huge deal because it just kind of comes together. So be triple sure. Get lots of jack stands. How many jack stands you have? Get 2 more. And so support that engine and remove that motor mount. If you remove that motor mount, this job is much, much, much easier. That doesn't mean it's super simple. On my install, I'll put here at the end the order I had to go. So as you're trying to hang the driver's side, I was able to get the Doug Thorleys to hang on the top ones, but I couldn't get, not with the bottom studs in place, even with the engine lifted and the motor mount out of the way. So I had to hang it from the top. I just put like 1 nut here to hold it. And then I would slowly have to thread the studs through, because again, the pipes are coming down in a weird way. You can't quite, so you have to like lean it out a little bit, stick the stud through, thread the stud, lean it out, stick the stud through, and thread the stud. So just kind of go slow, pay attention, and look, as you're going to want to take the at least driver wheel off in the fender skirt, and as you are lifting things up like the motor, check your jack stands really carefully. Like, make sure that as you're shifting weight by picking up the engine, that you're not coming off your jack stands. So be very careful. This one can kill you, right? This is a very heavy vehicle, and so whatever you're doing, make sure you've got lots of support for it and support for the motor. But this was a horrible job for me. I absolutely did not like this job at all. I'm glad it's done. The reason I went with this is because I was having a ticking noise. I was getting a cracked manifold, and you know, that seems to have fixed it somewhat. I've still got a little bit of a tick, but that just might be the VVTi part of this whole thing. It's better now. It's definitely getting a little bit more power as I'm driving it, but it's not going to be a huge difference. You're getting like maybe 20 horsepower, which is great. Don't get me wrong, it's a good price for 20 horsepower. But on a VVTi motor, that's not even 10% of your power, which means it's not necessarily going to be a butt dyno kind of thing you can feel. On a non-VVTi, I'd do this any day. I would absolutely do this system on the non-VVTi to get a little more power. That'll get you maybe about 10% more power, which is a big deal. Okay. The other thing too is that, like, this heat shield, I couldn't get off because of the motor mount being in place on the driver's side. So again, if you get that motor mount out of there, it's just gonna make it so much easier. And I wish I'd taken it off on the passenger side, but I did the passenger side first. And again, I think everything would have gone so much faster if I had just taken out the motor mounts. And if I had chased the threads on the passenger side, that's what took me all the time. Was trying to figure out this thread. One of them was fine, the other one wasn't, and I sat there and I couldn't get it in. I thought it wasn't lined up, but it turned out it was actually, the threads had some stuff on it, so just be careful about that. All right, well, good luck. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that was really really terrible about this, and I think mostly it's just, again, be kind of careful, chase your threads, pull the motor mount, or at least I had to. You decide, okay? You take your own safety seriously, and it can be done. If I was looking at this again, I might have just replaced the driver with an OEM, but at least it's done. Get a little more power. It's pretty great, I guess. I wish you could see them more. They're unfortunately kind of tucked down in the V at the very bottom, so you can't really see them, and they're beautiful. These things are really gorgeous, and like on a Chevy or something like that, you'd be able to see them up higher. So anyhow, it's done. If you're going to do this job, good luck. Please feel free to comment if you got any tips and tricks as you do it. Removing the motor mounts and supporting the motor and supporting the vehicle is a way to make this job much easier. You'll be able to get to everything. And again, keep in mind that the Doug Thorleys are different than the Toyotas, and that Toyota is meant to be tightened from the side, and you can get to it from the side. The Thorleys are meant to be tightened from the top and the bottom. You can't do that if you're using the Toyota gaskets as they are with the overhang, at least not easily. You can get like tiny little wrench on there, you get a little micro movement. It's bad. It took me a long time because I left these on. And again, I don't necessarily think you need that heat shield component because the Thorleys are different. Let's see. Anything else? Good luck. I hope it goes much better for you than it did for me. And I totally understand why someone would pay to do this particular one. And that might come to the main point here, is that the Thorley folks know what they're doing with exhaust. And so it's quite possible that when they did this, when they did their install, they did it the right way. I'm shade treeing it here. I'm sitting in my driveway and I've got to figure it out. And so it's quite possible that my way is wrong, but I'm just saying you could do this a lot faster if you move the motor mounts out of the way and don't hopefully spend 16 hours like I did to get this done. It was a beast. Anyhow, have a good one.